Hi, welcome. I wanted to make this video the perfect video you can put on in the background while you are decluttering or going through and organizing something. This is going to be about an hour long, and my whole intention with this is to offer words of encouragement, something that you can just play in the background. And maybe if you're not getting organizing or decluttering done, it still is wonderful to have you here. Listen while you're getting ready in the morning, or just wanting to chill out and listen to something that makes you feel good about life. That's the goal of this video. So get cozy or get what you need set up in your area. And we are just going to free flow. I don't have any notes here. I just wanted to talk about life, and we are in the process of selling everything. We're pursuing this big dream that we've had for years to take time out of life that just keeps going faster and faster, and take a time out and go and explore and play and enjoy one another. And the older I get, the more I realize life doesn't stop and just give you time to catch your breath. You have to demand it, and you have to find a way to create that buffer in your own life. So that's what we're doing. As I am going through all of our lifelong possessions, our collections, I have such a unique viewpoint right now on all of the stuff that we are told that we should have. So I'm hoping I can be of encouragement to you if you're needing that extra push, that you are not defined by your stuff. In fact, you get to write your own script for your life. You don't have to be defined what other people have tried to label you or put you in a box. You get to instead write your story. So what does that look like, right? That might be easy to say, but what does it actually look like when you start to evaluate how you want your life to look, and you're bridging this person that you've been with the person you want to be? For me, it's all about starting with taking inventory, and that can be mental, or you can get a piece of paper and a pencil out. But I started looking at the different areas of my life. What does my financial world look like right now? What does my health look like? What about my relationships? We could start with what's inside my home. How are my relationships with my kids or my husband? And then expand that to siblings or parents, children, neighbors. Keep expanding outward. How about friends? Are you happy with the friendships you have? Is there some of them that you feel like maybe you've outgrown, but they're comfortable? I think it's pretty common for most of us to have some friends that we've kept out of, I don't know if obligation's the right word, but they've always been there. And sometimes those people don't make you feel great. They can sometimes be stuck on this old version of you and making you feel anchored there. And it can be helpful sometimes to create a little bit of distance in some of those relationships when it's needed. Then I've gone through and looked at, from a spiritual health perspective, am I feeling fulfilled? And this could be religion, but it doesn't have to be. It could be just a moral guidance, something bigger than yourself, an energy audit, things like that. From a work or schooling perspective, how are you feeling? And if you do not work, is there like a contributing area of your life that you can look at? Do you volunteer? Do you give back in any way? Have you been wanting to start up a business and it just feels very overwhelming to you? You're not sure where to begin, or some sort of side hustle. Start taking note of those. I'm a big believer that we have to bring attention to things and call it out a little bit, even if it's only in our heads. Bring a little bit of energy around it and start to make a moment of it, an acknowledgement, so that we can start to move forward. So then what I do is I would go through and I would do an audit of my relationships or things that bring me stress. And I will set a timer or just sit and free write everything that's stressing me out. And it could seem like that list could go on and on sometimes, right? But you will get to a place where often what I find is it's not as bad as I thought it was. And so I will just do a brain dump. Everything that I need to, I'll get on paper. And then I'll go through and I'll circle the things that I can do nothing about. Something that a family member is going through that I can't control the outcome. Or something that maybe a health-related thing of someone we care about. Sometimes it's the external, bigger political things or socio-economic things that we can have a little bit of a role in, right? We can show up and we can vote, or we can have our voice heard. We can share a message. We have a circle of influence that we can work with. Maybe there's ways we can get involved to make bigger change. But the things that we know are really beyond us being able to fix them, go ahead and circle them and release them. You are going to surrender that to whether you want to call it God or energy, your deepest knowing. You're taking it off of your worry plate, and you're going to trust that the universe knows how to handle it better than you do. And there's something really powerful when that happens. It's not actually you giving up on it. It's you anchoring yourself into a deeper place. Because sometimes when we're kind of have like this monkey mind and we're going from thing to thing and anxiety's taking over and we're worrying a lot, we're not actually solving anything. So when we can recognize and get some of those out of our mental cycle that we're stuck in, then we can start to look at, okay, these are the things that I can actually do something about. And there's tremendous power in that. There's a regaining a sense of control especially in times where it feels like we don't have a lot of control. So then the next step for me would be, what are some things I can do? Is there a next step I can do for these things? And if you have space, you can write it next to it, or you could start a new sheet and start writing. What are some things how can I address this thing? Sometimes they're simple fixes. It's a phone call. It's an apology. They're not easy necessarily, but they're simple. It's sometimes setting a boundary. And then that leads me to things that make me feel stressed out or anxious. Now, this is different to me than worrying. So try to find the distinction here that these are people that are dumping their stuff on me all the time. These are things that I can control. I just need to. This could be turning off the news channel playing 24 hours a day in your home. This could be setting a boundary and no longer answering the phone call when the person who loves to call and complain calls again. It could be choosing to sit somewhere else at your lunch because you know that there's just a gossip drama circle happening and you don't really want to be a part of it anymore. Starting to look at those things and realizing what you can do to eliminate some of the unnecessary drama and set some better boundaries in your life is incredibly powerful. And that actually all ties into then this next step of decluttering and getting rid of things that no longer serve you. I noticed for myself when I have been packing up stuff and going through, this was especially strong going through my art studio. The moments where I started to think, oh no, I don't know if I should get rid of that. I'm not sure. What if? For me, I noticed that I was stuck more in this belief that the best times were behind me. And when I could anchor into a place of genuinely believing there is so much more still to see and create and do, my best days are still in front of me. It allowed me to let go of some of these things that no longer serve me, and I was only holding on to from a place of fear or nostalgia or worry that what if this is it? And so when I would allow myself to think in a more positive place, I could release those. Now, granted, mine is much more extreme because we're talking about I'm getting rid of everything. We're only each taking a carry-on with us and probably have 1 or 2 pieces of luggage at the end that I'm going to keep at someone's house. So once we do eventually figure out where we want to be, when we fly back home the next time, we can take that luggage with us with just some mementos and things like that Christmas ornaments, a few extra documents, stuff that is more, we don't want to carry around over and over with us, but someday we'd like that. A couple of things the kids have created. But everything else is going. So after inheriting so much stuff in my life and buying so much stuff, especially in my 20s, and then meeting and getting married in my late 20s to my current husband, there was 2 families of stuff. And now we live on 6 acres with a giant workshop and a bunkhouse that we had furnished with all these family heirlooms and 3 levels in our house. It's not a large house, but it still has 3 levels and multiple bedrooms and things that we've gone through. 3 bathrooms of things and multiple living areas and the laundry room that can turn into storage. I mean, you all get it. And so having to go through that bit by bit has been equally exciting and nostalgic. So I started doing this years ago, really, with the intent that this was my ultimate goal, that we would someday travel. But it was such a pipe dream that I really didn't know if we'd ever actually be able to pull it off. So it was more of a sense that I am going to sell things while I can and get money for them and just keep putting that away towards our goal. I am going to make room. And at that, certain points, I wasn't sure what that was for. Is that travel, or is that simply I just want space so I can finally feel like I can relax without every spare second being spent cleaning or organizing something. So I started going through the easiest things to get rid of. And that's what I would encourage you to do. Start with the things where you can walk through and you're like, these are things that at one point maybe meant something, or someone gave this to me. I have no attachment to it. Those are the things to start with. And sometimes that could be many boxes of stuff. So start in whatever room feels the easiest to you. Do not start with the family photos or the souvenirs from a vacation that still mean something. Family heirlooms. Those are not the place to start. Start with books you've already read that you know you'll never read again. Start with the piles of paperwork or documents that you don't need, that you can scan into PDFs with your phone. It's super easy. There are many softwares that can do that for you. Start with those things that just feel like they aren't so intrusive and doesn't require such a mental load to do. It's more of a time and energy thing. This can also be clothing. Start with the things that no longer fit, that are out of style, that you really don't like anyways. For years, I had a bin of one size smaller clothing that I was someday going to fit in. And then once I actually got to try those clothes on again, I had lost some weight and I was ready to try them on. It was so interesting that I really only kept about 2 things out of the entire bin. Most of them didn't fit right anyways. They probably never had. Or I might have bought them and they were too small from the moment I bought them, but I was determined. Some of them are things that just the style was not good on my body type. Whether I was this size or a smaller size, I'm built kind of like a cardboard box. There's not a lot of curves happening there. So I have to do what I can in that area. But for me, continuously going through the clothing has been a really big one. In fact, I have about 90% or more of my clothes that are all black. As you can see in every one of my videos, I have about 6 to 8 like shirts that are black, that are t-shirts or tank tops. I have a few shawl type things, sweaters, sweatshirts, yoga pants, jeans, leggings, dresses, all black. I don't know if it's the creative artisty part of me that wanted something that was simply easy and I didn't require a lot of creative thought going into my wardrobe. I wanted to save every bit of creative juice I had for all these other really fun things. But it has made my life so much easier when I don't have to think about what matches what. And I have a couple things that when I'm feeling like I want to venture out and wear something brighter, I can. But I don't have much. I have a foot and a half, maybe, of closet hanging space and a couple shelves. So not a lot, but that works for me. I'm not saying that that should work for you, but for me, that's been incredibly freeing to not have endless things. I used to have, 40 pairs of shoes. Then none of them were super cute. I'm not talking like really expensive, nice shoes. I'm talking Kohl's had a clearance and I loaded up on them shoes. And eventually, I've just allowed myself now to stop buying shoes and slowly work through wearing down shoes and clothes, wearing them down. I'll find myself a shirt that I know that I'm not going to take with us when we travel. I'll use it for painting. If there's already something wrong with it where I couldn't just donate it, it's not a nice enough shirt to donate or sell. Other things I have for the last 2 years probably helped my daughter especially, but also for myself, sell a ton of stuff on Poshmark. That's been really great. If you have things that are brand named or unique in a certain way, Poshmark or eBay can be great for those. I have also simplified down to where my socks are all mix and match the same pretty much. My makeup routine is pretty simple. This is the most makeup I wear, and it's once or twice a month that I put this much on. For school or for just going about, it's either none or maybe a little bit. I tend to have a little rosacea type thing here, so I'll try to maybe put a little bit of powder on and some mascara. Maybe do my eyebrows because they're kind of transparent if I don't have them filled in a little bit. But that's about it. And again, I'll reiterate, none of this is to tell you what you should do. It's simply that this is what's worked for me, and maybe it sparks an idea for you of a way that you can simplify your process or get rid of some things that no longer are serving you. I went under my bed and went through all of the extra stuff we had under there for someday. Or the chest at the end of my bed that had all of these clothes I was going to wear someday if I, at that point, wasn't sure if I'd be staying here and working a job, if I wanted to do my own business and continue that, if we were going to be traveling full-time or part-time. So I kept a lot of these clothes that I wasn't sure what to do with. And some of them were ones that my daughter had inherited, and they were super cute. She's a little bustier than I am, so they didn't fit her quite right. And so I'm like, yeah, I'll take them and I'll see. Things like that. And then eventually, though, just trying them on and realizing we are going. So these are no longer going to work for me. So getting rid of about pretty much all of them, maybe keeping one or two items that I'm going to plan on wearing until we leave, sort of situation. But even if you're not going somewhere, you can still go through and do that and free yourself of what's just taking up space all around you. I'm going to stop and take a drink here of my coffee. Coming up here, I'm going to go downstairs in the laundry room, and we have been ripping up the tile down there in the basement and re-sheetrocked. We have new sheetrock up. Everything's mudded and sanded and painted now, which is such a huge relief. And we are getting ready to put the final trim up. But first, my husband's been grinding down the old bits of tile and adhesive that were left on the floor that the scraper didn't take off. So we started doing that, and it was so dusty that he got about half of the new bedroom done down there, and the whole basement was filled with like cloudy dust residue. And he couldn't even see where he was working. I mean, he had a full mask on and stuff, but still just not ideal. And there was a crack under the door going to the laundry room where all of this sort of seeped up, and there's a little layer of it on every box of pasta and, extra shampoo or all the things that we have on these shelves down there. And so it's given me a little extra motivation to go through it down there and clear things out. What do I know for sure that we're not going to use before we go? What things do I need to notice down there so that I don't buy a replacement and we make sure we use before we go? And then which things are things that I just need to price and put them away for the garage sale? So that's kind of where I'm at. There's a few blankets and things that they're extra. When we would hang out down there, sometimes we would use them, but we're not going to be hanging out down there. And we have blankets on the other floors still. So those got washed and folded and priced, and now they're away in a box. There's also things like food that after looking through, I realized at Costco, one of the trips, I've gotten 3 bags of espresso beans now for my husband. And I don't know if he'll even go through 2. We'll see before we go, but I want to just make sure that we are using that up. We've been working on emptying out the pantry up here in the kitchen and so in the cabinets. So I'm going to go through there and remove some of that and bring it up here so we can make sure things get used. And that as we have to finish the grinding of the floor a little bit, or at least do the parts that really need to be grinded, and any more dust goes in there, that at least there's less stuff to have to dust off and clean and move and things like that. So we already have all of the tile that we're going to be putting down sitting in there, so it feels very crowded and very full, and it's a little overwhelming. So everything I can get out of there, that's my goal. Yesterday I took out we each have a backpack that we use when we travel, and so I got those out of there and cleaned up and have those now under our beds. So they're ready and they're not going to get full of dust again. So that's a good feeling. I've put on the calendar for March, I think, to go through the upstairs. Upstairs is my son's bedroom and his gaming room. My daughter's room was up there when she was here. Now he just gets the whole upstairs. And then a bathroom. And years ago, there was a big closet in the middle between the rooms. And we took off the closet doors and we converted it to this really neat little sunken in reading nook. And then under that bench is all of our board games stacked up. So an idea that I have is to bring those games down, 5 or 6 at a time. And as me and my son are hanging out or watching Gilmore Girls or just doing something in the evenings that we'll do sometimes to kind of have some time together, we can sit and just go through those games in a calm way and make sure they have all the pieces or not. Do we need to get rid of them? Are they trash? Are there parts that could just be burnable in our wood boiler? Are they sellable? Are they ones that we know someone would really enjoy them so we could donate them? Things like that. Give them as gifts to, some of his friends. Not gifts, but give them to some of his friends or other people, other relatives. So that's something that I don't want to wait until the last minute when we're trying to do everything else. That can be done in a calm, just fun way that doesn't require a lot of mental energy. That's what we had to do with his Legos, is we would sit up there for hours at a time, a couple times a week, over a few weeks. And we would organize them and we'd watch Young Sheldon together. It became our Lego organizing show. And it was really fun to just spend time with him. He's just this teenage boy and he's so sweet. And I don't really play Legos, so that was my way to play with him, is to help him organize. And it felt like I was actually doing something that was beneficial to him, so that was nice. But we're going to have to do that for his other areas of things too, his books, and slowly get everything emptied and staged upstairs and painted and all of the kind of go through and just give it some love up there. Check all the trim. Check everything that you have to do when you're either going to sell or rent out a house. Make sure everything's in, perfect order, basically. There's a little spot on the carpet that some slime, silly putty type stuff got stuck on years ago that I'm going to have to figure out if I have to cut a patch of carpet from the back of the closet, and can I replace it in a really good way, or do we have to altogether replace the carpet? We'll have to see. So some of that kind of stuff, but we realized we ran out of energy a few weeks ago when we were going to finish up tiling, when it was so smoky and everything from him trying to do the floor downstairs, and it was -20, -25 degrees Fahrenheit outside at that point. And we realized this was just not going to be the weekend for that to happen. We needed to wait until there was a weekend where we could open the window, put a fan blowing outward, and just have it be done in a safer way that doesn't disrupt the whole house. So part of why I wanted to make this video also is there's not really anyone in my life that I could talk about this stuff with that gets it. So it's not that they don't care. I'm not saying that. But nobody wants to hear about this unless you're actually going through things or decluttering, or you yourself are dreaming of a big life change. You don't always want to hear all the details of what someone's thought process is or how they're decluttering their laundry room, things like that. Except for, I know I have loved listening to things like this when I have been needing some motivation to sit and declutter something or clean or organize something. So let this be just a window, even though I'm not there with you, that I understand what you're going through. And it's not easy to make a big change. And oftentimes, I think people don't organize or go through things or simplify their lives until they have to. Either they've run out of space or they've run out of money. Some life event has happened that's forcing them to deal with things, to reorganize or restructure life in a different way. And that's very normal. But what we can do is, once we're making those changes, we realize how strong we actually are and how possible it is to make these changes. We kind of build that muscle up. And so then we can look at other areas of our lives and make the changes before they're demanded of us. This could even be going through and getting rid of extra things and sorting things while you feel young and healthy, instead of waiting until it's too late, where you don't have the energy or the mental clarity to sit and make those decisions. It's hard, even at the strongest points of our lives. It's not easy to decide what to do with all of our things. So if we can make it a practice to start by bringing in less things, like stop the buying, you having power over them instead of them having power over you, that is the key. I teach a course called Dare to Dream, and in that we break down all these different steps of how to get from where you are to daring to dream again and getting really clear on a dream. And that intersects with the things in our home, the choices that we make, who we interact with, how we allow ourselves to overcome. And sometimes overcoming is what other people put upon us, and sometimes it's what's going on in our own head. So a really big thing that I've discovered every time I work with people in Daring to Dream is working through layers of fear. And fear doesn't always look like fear how we picture it, being scared of something. Fear can show up as apprehension. I want to continue learning because I don't want to be made a fool of. It could show up as avoidance, blaming others. Some of us take on more of a victim role instead of dealing with what we're actually feeling. Sometimes it's a matter of being angry. It's easier to be angry at someone than it is to admit that we're afraid. And so getting really clear on what that you're wanting and what fears are coming up for you about that. So if you're going through things and you're scared of getting rid of extra things or making a life change that others aren't going to understand, or maybe you're worried that you are simplifying too much and you might need those things, think through what fears are coming up for you when you start to think about getting rid of things, or this deeper part of this next chapter for yourself. And write those down. Write down what comes up for you. Because we're not going to leave it there. We don't have to leave ourselves sitting in the fear, but when we acknowledge it, we can start to handle it and decide what to do. A really big fear that I notice with a lot of people who are wanting to either retire part-time or make a big change in life, and that could be downsizing or traveling, is the fear of not having enough information, how to make sure that you aren't making a big mistake, how to get out of this paralyzed state of indecision. And some of that can come from stopping looking at all of, let me phrase this in a way that's understood. It can come from when you stop comparing your life to how others are living their life. Your life doesn't have to look like those around you does. You have a completely different life path, life experiences, goals, and dreams that have been with you for decades sometimes. Things that you've witnessed either positively or injustices, things you've experienced, pains, joys, things you've learned or witnessed through the years. All of those add up into creating this unique perspective that you have. And then you have me, who is an artist and by far the biggest head in the clouds dreamer of them all, living a very different life where I've stayed home and raised my kids, and I've chose to work on my own business, more of an entrepreneur mindset, and just did things differently. And what they've done for them has worked great for them, but it would not feel how I'd want to live my life. And I'm sure vice versa for them. They would probably not love my life. It fits me really well. And so when I bring up wanting to sell everything and go travel, for someone who has their kids in sports right now, multiple kids, and they're both working in-person jobs, and all of these barriers that they wouldn't even know where to begin with what I'm talking about doing, I can't expect them to understand that. Nor can I expect them to give me permission or encourage me. They don't even know what that path looks like, so they wouldn't know how to encourage me on it. And none of that is a slam towards them. Why would they? They're doing their own thing. So the same thing, if one of them came to me and said, I want to do this in my career path next with nursing, I surely would say, way to go. No idea how to get there, but I'm happy for you and excited for you. Same sort of thing, right? So if one of them were sitting waiting for the confirmation from me that they should do this next part of their nursing journey, they're going to be waiting forever because I don't even know that exists. It's not even on my radar. And it's not that I don't care about them. I just simply have no idea about that. I put my energy into other things that matter for me. And so sometimes the fear can come from you're not getting validation from other people or they don't understand. And you need to somehow figure out a way to leapfrog that. Because they may never understand. Or they simply need more information. So often their concern can be from the best place. Other times it could be that you are no longer going to be their daycare provider, or some people are going to have problems if you pull back your energy where they're used to getting your energy for free. I mean, I've witnessed all of this just firsthand, so I can only imagine how many other scenarios that I've never even been exposed to that you have, where you've witnessed things like this. So bringing it all back, you have this knowing inside of you that you maybe only dare to even think could be possible. You might think that time of life has passed you by, or life is comfortable enough, so why would I ruffle things up? That's a really big one. When it's already good, why would you possibly risk that at that point? That's why I think sometimes it takes people going through a big loss or some big change where change is forced upon them, and then they can piggyback onto that change all of these other things. Because it's like, well, I've got to change anyways. I might as well change in ways that work for me now. So getting clear about the fears, and then you're going to want to take those fears and get clear about them. So if you have a dream of traveling part-time, let's say you're like me, you live where it's ridiculously cold and you're just over it. You don't necessarily have to move across the world. Maybe you want to start spending winters somewhere else. Maybe all of your friends go to Florida, but that's not your thing. So you can start to research and figure out, overcome the fear of the unknown by starting to learn. You might discover that there is a wide number of people that go to places like Portugal, Vietnam, Philippines, Thailand, and they get medical care done while they're there. They have all these things happen, places in Mexico or Panama, places that can be incredibly safe and super affordable. And some of these life things that happen in normal life, you can go and you can get caught up on during this time. So as you start to lean into those things, you can start to do some more research. You can start following some other people on YouTube, maybe that are living in those places, start learning about them. I have a few videos ago about how to research. You can start looking at cost comparisons. There are people that retire and live on cruise ships. I don't know if that's my thing, but they love it. And they say that it's way cheaper than going into an assisted living or nursing home. And if you are of a physical, health that you could do that, that sounds amazing if that's your thing. But most people around you probably would think that you have kind of lost your mind if you said you were going to do that. So you have to be willing to kind of not care what they think or not tell them long enough for you to gather up the courage and the research and the knowledge. Sometimes we can make a mistake by telling those closest to us what our biggest dreams are. And out of the best place that they think they're being so helpful in protecting us, they shut our dreams down. And it's heartbreaking because they don't know any more about that topic than we do. And worse, they don't feel a connection to it like you do. So you're feeling this calling and possibly have already started doing research. And then somebody could come in with no idea what they're talking about and put enough fear or enough judgment on you that you will squash your dreams. And not intentionally. Sometimes it's simply to avoid an argument out of this need to people please and just be part of the status quo and not ruffle feathers. I'm sure it's all over, but very much in the Midwest, we were taught to just be nice girls. We don't want to upset people, and we just want people to like us, and we be kind. Now, in theory, that's not bad. You don't need to be a jerk for no reason, but there is a point where you are going to deny your own needs to please someone else that their needs really don't matter to you at that moment. If that's what you're living by like a blind philosophy of. So all of that coming back to you have to protect your dreams. Your clarity around them matters. Getting clear around the fears and the hopes. Why do you want this next step? That matters. To get a really clear why, that's what's going to anchor you to that every time a little speed bump comes up. That's what's going to make you sit your butt on the floor and go through the closet. Is because you know on the other side of that is this bigger, wonderful dream that you have. I can't even count the number of times where I've been about to spend money. And even before we were going to travel full time, I had a trip coming up that I knew about. And so often it wasn't like we just had extra money just sitting around. I had to hustle to get that money in those accounts and make sure to protect it at all costs. So it was about saving money where I could, selling things we didn't need. It was about finding any extra overtime hours or side things I could take on, extra clients I could work for, selling extra art or earns that month, things like that. And I, every single time, would have to set the intention. The most recent was Japan. I wanted to go to Japan. I wanted it so bad. I knew my family did. And then we all decided this isn't going to happen. It's just not possible. And so I put it on the shelf and said, well, maybe someday we'll do it. And we felt this pull because the World Expo was there the time we wanted to go. So it was like we could go the following year, but it wouldn't be there. The World Expo wouldn't be going on then. And we really wanted to go to the World Expo. And so we shelved it for a little bit. And I am a big believer, like if something keeps coming up, I listen to it. And I just had this pull. And eventually I was like, all right, family, either I'm going to Japan by myself or we're all going to figure out a way to make this happen. And we had to kind of figure out what do we think it's going to cost and really get clear about that so we knew what we had to kind of manifest, if you will. And sure enough, we set that intention. I had some extra artwork orders come in that equaled thousands of dollars. We used airline miles to get a couple of our flights for free. We cashed out on some other points for some hotels. We figured out how to do it in an economical way for us. So there wasn't a lot of extra money being spent, but okay, what's the bare minimum we can do here to make this trip happen? Start there. Then every time my husband would get overtime, we'd put money towards that. If we got anything from a tax return, that went towards it, on and on. And so surely it started to come together. We saved money instead of going out to eat. Many times I would be ready to order something from a fast food restaurant or something to bring home for dinner. And I would think, does this $5, $40, $60 item that I'm going to get for the family or for myself matter more to me than Japan? Does this streaming service this month matter more to me than Japan? And so we didn't have every streaming service every month. I think my family thought I'd lost my mind when I said, okay, we're cutting off this one for the next few months and we'll do this other one instead during that time. And I get it. They can argue all day that it's only $8 for this one, $12 for this other one. This one is $16. But you add them all up and then you multiply that times that year. We're talking hundreds of dollars. And we only have like one set of eyes each. So how many of them can we really be watching? So it forced us to watch that one channel when we'd have it. And then we'd change it to the other one. And then we'd get caught up on those shows. It took a little more energy and a little more effort on my part to make sure that I'm staying on top of them so I didn't accidentally end up with overlapping ones all at the same time or paying more in the long run because I accidentally left a good deal that we had or something like that. But those are just some of the things that you can start to do. Find the money, start gathering the change up, save the quarters, stop spending on anything you don't need to outside of that goal. Get really clear about it. This is such a huge thing. It literally cannot be overstated. When you are just spending money on a Target run or suddenly you find yourself at Walmart, it's so easy to have it be a few $100s if you're not careful. You can pick up just a couple of this and an extra thing of that or, things that you maybe don't even need. So if you have a why that you are focused on, it does stop you and encourage you to have more discipline from spending money on these other things. A handful of nights out of having dinner out with the family, a few outfits less, getting smart on some credit cards that have bonuses and being really smart about your spending and paying them off in full can get you really amazing travel points bonuses. You just have to be diligent and focused on the goal. And having that why will also it encouraged me to clean out the closets. It encouraged me to sell off things I didn't need. All of those things then created space, and without even knowing the next goal we were going to have, already started us having less stuff for having to move and sell everything. So it's like that goal just merged right into the next one. It made it easier for that next one to happen. Had I not been decluttering over the years and going through things and building that muscle of being able to let go of things, I don't know how it would look right now, deciding to sell everything. It might feel really traumatic and scary. And not only the act of knowing how to sell things, like we have sold hundreds and hundreds of things on eBay over the last year, the emotional part of not knowing who I am without those things. Every time I choose to get rid of something and honor this deeper part of myself, I tune in a little bit more of what that deeper part of myself is. And there's very few things that we need to really get by in this life. And I've said it before in my other videos, but I'll say it here again. If you're not planning on moving abroad or you don't need to downsize and move, there's no reason to get rid of everything. I am not somebody who thinks that you should live with nothing. things can be really comforting and beautiful, and you can really enjoy them. But I do think it's a big problem that a lot of people have, in that we think, well, if one frog figurine is cute, then 50 must be really cute. Or if one set of dishes is great, then why not have the 8 sets of dishes that we love? And very often they end up all cluttered together and nobody can appreciate any of them. Whereas if you have just a handful of your favorites out, people will notice them. If you're eating off of your best dishes, you're actually using them. Otherwise, if they're just stored away in cabinets for decades, I don't get the point. There may be a different goal in mind for some of you, that's your thing, but I don't get it. It's not my thing. I watched that with my grandmother, who had so many neat things, but they were all so cluttered together in cabinet after cabinet that no one ever got to see any of them. It was heartbreaking after she passed to be going through her things and thinking like, wow, I bet she had such a beautiful experience picking this out and really debated over if she wanted this pattern or the other pattern. Why did she choose this silver serving tray? But it was mixed in with junk, mixed in with cheap Walmart clearance stuff and things from, who knows where. So it all kind of blurred together into just this overwhelming amount of things. And I'd hate for that to happen with the things that you've worked so hard to have and that you love get overshadowed by all of the other stuff that really doesn't matter. So whether it's clothing or decor, books, shoes, tools, yard ornaments, it's so easy to think that more is more. But if it's not done very strategically and in a way that it actually does enhance them, it can be almost paralyzing how much energy it takes to deal with those things. At some point, someone has to deal with them. And if it's not you, it's going to be your kids, or your spouse, or some random person that doesn't know you and isn't going to appreciate any of them. Like, what a better deal if you get to say what they were, cash out on some of them, or donate them to really neat places that would love them. Tell your kids about them to see if they want them now so you can see them enjoying them. There's so many other solutions that don't involve grief-ridden people trying to understand what your intentions were for your things. And it's truly selfish of all of us when we do that to others. We don't plan to do it. That's not our intention. But it does. We've all been on the recipient or the receiving side of that, where we've had to clean up someone else's mess. And it's hard. And it's that much time that's taken away from our own lives to try and honor this person's things. And we don't know the stories. We don't know where they got it. Oftentimes, we don't know what their thought process was behind it or their hopes about it. So all of that just gets lost. So any amount that you can do now of that legwork will save so much confusion and misunderstanding and frustration for those around you. And bonus points if you can use those to gather up money, put it towards your retirement or your next dream or goal. Or if you're good and you have kids or grandkids, I promise you, the younger generations, this world is not the same one even that I grew up in. The amount they're paying to get by is mind-blowing. Many of them working 2-3 jobs, and we're just sitting on all of our stuff here like it's no big deal. And what they would give to have an extra $50 or $100 to get by in life, $1,000. I mean, you could create such a gift to the people, your grandchildren or your children, by letting go of some of that and cashing out and helping them. If you don't need the help, help them. I promise you they will be so grateful. So hopefully this video has been helpful as you've just listened along and kind of listened to me talk about everything from dreams and goals to decluttering and moving and fears. I'm going to go take the dog out, say hi to the cat. It's cold here today, but it's getting a little warmer. It's, I think, about 10 degrees above zero, so that's good. I thank you for being here. If you listen to this video while you're working on something, I'd love if you'd share. Were you working on something in decluttering? My hope is to come up with some more longer form content like this that can be encouraging, so you don't feel like you need to listen to something that kind of sucks the life out of you. Instead, you can listen to something that offers some ideas, some encouragement you can weave into what your next goals are. So I thank you for being here, and I appreciate your time. And I hope you'll join me for another video. I've switched my format here in February to 3 main videos a week. And every Sunday I'm sharing a chapter from my Sacred Hellos book. And so that's been really fun. I would love if you join me for that. They're posting at Sunday at 3 p.m. Central Time. And you can listen back whenever works for you as well. But that's when I'm posting them. There is 20-something chapters, so it'll be going on for months here. And I'll make a separate playlist for that if you want to check it out. Otherwise, I also have a free PDF I will link in the description, all about creating a purposeful and a intentional pivot in life. How to do that. It covers a little bit what I've talked about in this, but in a way that you can customize it for what your needs are. So I'll share that in the description. I'd love if you would take advantage of that free gift I have created for you. All right. Have a wonderful day. Bye.